Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of TED Talk Stamps. At the end of the last episode, I told you the next episode, this one, would be a Zoom chat I was going to have with a expert on crash covers. Well, we haven't been able to make that Zoom chat happen yet. It keeps getting put off one day and then to the next day. And now, as I'm speaking, it's going to be tomorrow. So in the meantime, I've just put together this episode revisiting stamp bloopers, errors of designs on stamps. Some of these can be quite humorous. Others are a little embarrassing. To begin with, I'll start off with this stamp set from Grenada. In 1987, Grenada put out a set of 4 stamps in honor of inventors and innovators. Included in the set were Isaac Newton, who of course invented the apple, John Jacob Berzelius, who developed the chemical symbols for the elements, without which we could not have H2O. And there's Robert Boyle, who came up with Boyle's law of pressure and volume, which led to the innovation of boiled water. And then Rudolf Diesel, shown here with his diesel engine. Or is it? It seems someone pulled the old switcheroony on us. This stamp actually shows James Watt, and in the background is the steam engine he developed, without which today's housewives would not have their AI self-propelled steam irons. Next, we have a stamp from Denmark. It commemorates the 40th anniversary of the Danish Consumer Council, which is a consumer, watchdog or protection group. The stamp artist came up with a clever idea to incorporate the postal rate into a commercial purchase receipt. The magnifying glass is presumably to symbolize the group's mission as a watchdog for consumer protection. Well, I hope they flagged the merchant for overcharging the consumer here, as this receipt shows that the unit price is 14 kroner per kilogram. The net weight of the product, in this case a letter, is 20 grams. And the total comes to 2.8 kroner, right? Wrong. 20 grams at 14 kroner per kilogram comes to 0.28 kroner. Quick, someone call the Consumer Council. In 2019, Great Britain prepared this stamp to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Allied landing in Normandy on D-Day. Several months before it was to go on sale, they previewed the stamp on Twitter. Royal Mail was immediately swarmed with messages from veterans and military historians, all pointing out that this was not, in fact, Normandy. The photo actually shows U.S. troops landing at Sarmi, Dutch New Guinea. The stamp was not issued after all, since it was scheduled for a 2020 release, so don't bother looking for it in your Kiloware. The next year, Royal Mail did it again, and on the same subject, World War II and D-Day. Well, not D-Day, but the end of World War II. Royal Mail issued this stamp for the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II. It's titled Serviceman Welcomed Home, 1945, and it depicts a Royal Air Force serviceman in his blue-gray RAF uniform. Now, Royal Mail utilized an original black and white photo, but it had it colorized. However, the serviceman in the photo was later identified as a member of the Royal Hampshire Regiment in North Africa, and thus his uniform should have been colorized Army khaki. Next, we have one from El Salvador from 1948, issued upon the death of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Now, this stamp could have come from a puzzle book where you have to spot the differences between two seemingly identical pictures. Let's see how many differences we can find between this stamp design and what should have been the correct one. First, there's the matter of the horse's legs. There are 4 horses drawing the wagon, right? And we might reasonably expect it to find 16 legs among them. Not so here. Let's count. 13 legs. Next, look at the honor guard escorts flanking the funeral caisson. As with the horses, 3 of these marching servicemen on the far side don't appear to have a leg to stand on. And then finally, while the limber rig, which is directly behind the horses, has 2 wheels, the funeral caisson behind that is rolling along on just 1 wheel. Here's a photo of FDR's funeral procession in which we can verify that all the horses and the servicemen have the requisite number of legs and the caisson does have 2 wheels. Incidentally, I'm not a fan of the engraving of this image either. Notice how all the servicemen are just featureless mannequins? Next comes one from Macau. Everyone knows that in gambling casinos, the odds are stacked in favor of the house, right? Well, apparently in Macau, the casinos take stacking to a whole nother level. In 1987, Macau released a set of 4 stamps showing different casino games. This one depicts the dice game called Kusik, or as you can see in the Chinese characters, big, small. Now there are 2 gaffes in this stamp design, one a little more obvious than the other. First, you'll notice on the right rear die, it shows a 5 on 2 of the sides, on the top and on the right side. And now, while there are some differences between Western dice and Asian dice, for example, Asian dice have orange-colored pips for the 1 and the 4, and Asian dice are left-handed compared to Western right-handed dice. That's really a thing. Go ahead, look it up. One thing they both have in common, though, is that opposite faces always add up to 7. And on this die, the vertical face to the right of the 1 should, in fact, be a 4, not a 5. Now, the other goof in this design is that Asian dice have larger pips. They're larger diameter than on Western dice. And while the 1 pips appear to be larger, as well as maybe the 5 on the front die, the pips on all the other faces appear to be about the same as on Western dice. They're smaller than they should be for Asian dice. Also on Asian dice, the pips are squished together more closely than they're seen here. The corner pips on the 5s and the 3 should all be smushed together closer towards the center. I think I'll cash out my winnings now. Now, when it comes to stamp design errors, I normally just ignore ones that have misspellings. They're far too common, and rarely are they of any interest, really. This one, however, is a different story. It's interesting and embarrassing, and, well, let me show you. In 2019, as many other countries did, Ireland released a set of stamps honoring the 50th anniversary of the first moon landing. Now, only 2 of the designs actually related directly to the mission. 2 of the stamps honored 2 astronauts with Irish ancestry, Katie Coleman and Eileen Collins, and they were inscribed as such. The other 2 pictured Michael Collins and Neil Armstrong, with the inscription 50th anniversary of the first moon landing on each one, in both English and in Irish. But look at the last word in the Irish inscription. 2 letters have been transposed. GAE should be GEA. The word for moon is spelled with GEA. Here they've switched the letters and it's spelled GAE, which changes the meaning of the word to Irish. So now the inscription reads, 50th anniversary of the first Irish landing. Post was terribly embarrassed about this when they found out, and they sent out apologies. And here I thought the Russians were the ones to always claim to be first. Got one more for you, and I'll call it a wrap. This one is from Romania. In 2020, Romania issued this stamp for the 140th anniversary of the Grand National Lodge of Romania. It depicts a portrait of Constantine Moroiu, the founding Grand Master of the National Lodge of Romania. Except this is not Constantine Moroiu, the founding Grand Master of the National Lodge of Romania. Well, how do we know? Well, on the stamp, the soldier's cap shows the royal cipher of King Ferdinand I. His reign began in 1914. Here is a photograph signed and dated 1909 of Constantine Moroiu, the founding Grand Master of the National Lodge of Romania. So these obviously cannot be the same man. But who is the man on the stamp? On the website where I found this information, a Romanian stamp collector recounts how in 2017, a website had a vintage photograph for sale depicting the soldier shown on the stamp. And it had his name, Constantine Moroiu. That is, Lieutenant Colonel Constantine Moroiu of the Romanian artillery unit in World War I. The designer of the stamp, searching for a suitable image of Constantine Moroiu, came across this photograph of a Constantine Moroiu, didn't bother to investigate further, and just ran with it. I don't know how long it was before Romania Post discovered the error, or if they, ever did for that matter. But a corrected stamp was never issued. So I've taken upon myself to correct that situation. Here's to you, Constantine Moroiu. And with that, I end today's program. I want to sincerely thank you all for joining me again. I appreciate all of your support, and if I may take a moment just to plead with you a little, as you know, I started my own stamp forum, a discussion board called TED Talk Stamps, the forum, in which I, intended it to be a place where the viewers here could continue the discussion of stamps seen on the various episodes in on a better venue like a discussion board. And you can find the link to it in the description below. However, it really hasn't, taken off the way I had hoped. A lot of people have registered, but really no one's participating. No one's posting anything. Activity has been, pretty minimal. So I decided maybe the best thing to do is to just, let it go. But I thought maybe I'll just give it a little bit longer and, ask you folks if you haven't been there yet or if you've considered it and just never got around to it. Come on over to the forum and post something. Share your stamps. Show us pictures of your favorite stamps, of your album, anything. I'd love to see you over there. And until then, this is Ted the Talking Stamp Collector, wishing you all happy stamping.